Okay, we are the audience and we are here for Shane's speech.
Okay. We currently find our country, in an unprecedented and unsettling situation in the global economy. The current administration's goal of imposing steep tariffs on Americans importing goods from foreign countries is shaping up to be a threat to the American economy. This threat is going to be towards big businesses, sure, but ultimately the real threat is to small businesses and the average American consumer like you and me. This is a topic I've been following closely for a few months now, and I've been able to delve further into it thanks to this presentation, so I'm going to share some of that, what I found out with you guys now. So the US imposed tariffs of 2025 are unprecedented in their size and scope, and will similarly be unprecedented in the damage it can cause to the US economy, the middle class, and small businesses. To fully illustrate the nature of these tariffs, I will first describe what they are as well as their scope. And beyond that, I will establish who ultimately is going to be paying for these tariffs and what kind of effect that's going to have for small businesses and consumers alike. So what is a tariff? A tariff, put simply, is a government tax on imports on foreign goods. Now, tariffs is an idea, they're nothing new, they've been around for hundreds of years, and the purpose of them typically is to encourage domestic production and consumption by making foreign goods more expensive, incentivizing people to buy domestic and boosting the economy of that country. The problem is that President Trump and his administration have implemented just extremely high tariffs and very far-reaching in a way that's not really been seen before in this country. To get into more details about these tariffs in particular, we can look at this report called The State of US Tariffs by the Budget Lab at Yale. This just came out on May 23rd, and they have the tariffs. Now these numbers are changing day to day, but most recently they had the tariffs at a baseline 10% across most countries and almost all goods coming into the US. That's just a start. And then they also have an additional 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, who are our two biggest trading partners, as well as 25% rate on most automobiles, as well as all steel and aluminum imports. Also a big one is the China, where the number is still fluctuating as the numbers keep going back and forth. It's been as high as 125%, but as of now, we're not really sure where that number is going to land. So before we can even get to the discussion of how this is going to impact small businesses and consumers in America, we have to talk about how such a large and widely unpredictable trade policy change like this is going to do long-term damage to the United States in terms of their credibility and reliability to the rest of the world as a trade partner. It's like, even if these tariffs are rescinded and go away tomorrow, the trust in the government and the economy of the United States will be eroded. So on the surface level, by their definition, tariffs should be paid by the person importing the stuff, but ultimately it's going to be the consumers paying that cost, as the importers will just have to raise their prices to cover that cost. So why are they even doing this? So these rising costs are kind of the point. As I discussed earlier, the point of tariffs is to encourage domestic production and consumption by making foreign goods more expensive. And unfortunately, America doesn't do a whole lot of manufacturing on a large scale anymore. Over the last century, this country's been shifting from a manufacturing to a service economy, and that's not really something you can just undo. So the administration's goal of bringing back American manufacturing isn't realistic or viable. So we're going to get all these higher prices without any of the supposed benefits. Now, the substantial negative impact on small businesses is going to be highlighted by the fact that small businesses have much smaller profit margins than a large corporation. So they have very little room to absorb this extra cost. So an example of this is a small business owner who was featured on Fox Business. Her name's Sarah Wells. She's had her business going for over a decade. She imports her goods from China. On April 11th, after talking with her, Fox Business explained, quote, after more than a decade in business, she has paused innovation, raised prices, and is now only reordering a fraction of the products she once did, as tariffs continue to weigh on her business. So, in addition to that, because these small businesses have such a low market share, they end up having very little leverage to bargain with suppliers about prices. So they are often just stuck paying whatever they need, whatever they're told to pay. So they will have to raise their prices in the end, which will kill the competitiveness they have with the larger corporations. Now, the American consumer will be hurt by this, obviously, because costs of everything will be higher across the board. With little manufacturing actually returning to the United States, it's just going to negatively impact our purchasing power. As mentioned before in that report by the Budget Lab at Yale, they estimate that the average American household will lose $3,600 in purchasing power just in the short term. And in addition to that, we're also likely going to see domestic goods also increase in price, because these US companies who are making domestic goods can just raise the price to be, just under that foreign imported price. So they're technically still cheaper, but everything's higher than it used to be. So all these factors combined is just going to hurt the GDP, or gross domestic product, of the United States economy. This is best summarized by an economics professor, Mark Williams, when he was interviewed by WGBH news outlet just on May 23rd. When he was asked about tariffs' effect on the state of Massachusetts, he said, quote, "What's important to understand is that when GDP declines, and that's of course an economic health barometer of any economy, then the health of that economy and the standard of living of those who live within that economy also decline. That's why it's very important to have a stable and growing economy." So all this is to say that with such large sweeping changes to trade policy like this, our economy will suffer, as will our reputation as a stable economic entity to the rest of the world at large. The people hurt most by this are small business owners and American consumers, who will have little choice to pay these higher costs and face long-term financial struggles. And I brought this information to you today to enlighten you just to the reality that we're facing. These large economic shifts are not just some headline to scroll past. They are very real threats and will affect every American. And we can only hope that our place in the global economy will soon return to a more stable and promising position, where small businesses and American citizens have the opportunity to flourish once again.